joy, and heartbreak. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Sunday, May 18th, 2025. Vic and Neil joining you after a rare day off from our recording schedule.
Yeah, and why was that again, Vic? Why did we have the day off?
Older son Ethan graduated from UMass Amherst. It's now official. Can't take it back. Two wonderful ceremonies on Friday evening and Saturday morning. So very proud of him. Now he looks to hit the job market, and you and I are back at it.
And when does he come off your payroll?
Well, he comes off my car insurance when he's 26, so I think that's the first thing that gets scrapped. So, and we'll still be paying off college for quite a long time to come. So hopefully he makes it big, hopefully in the NHL sooner than later, and we can get those college loans paid off.
Yeah, for sure.
Somewhat of a somber opening to our show as we recap the Dallas-Winnipeg game from Saturday evening. The Stars advance 2-1 overtime win, and they will go on to meet the Edmonton Oilers. But the headliner was the passing of Winnipeg Jets sniper Mark Scheifele's dad, Brad, on Friday evening. He did meet with Scott Arniel Saturday morning and said that he was going to play with a heavy heart, but nonetheless, it's what his dad would have wanted, and I think we would all say the same thing if it was us in those situations, just knowing how selfless parents are. They would always want the best for their kids, and by the way, Scheifele played last night with his hits, his shooting, his overall game. Let's put the penalty at the end of regulation aside. He was a very driven athlete, even more than he usually is.
He was really good, and he scored that first goal of the game, which really made this whole thing almost Hollywood, that he was playing in the game. He called his mother, obviously, talked to his mother, and his mother even said, yes, that's what your dad would want. You got to play. So he went out and he played great, and you can't blame him for the penalty at the end. It was just one of those things that happens, but that was the headline of the game for sure. One of the very best players Winnipeg has. So if he hadn't been able to play, it would have been a serious blow to the Winnipeg Jets.
He actually had a turnover on the first shift of the game, but no harm was done there. And I thought Dallas had the better of the play in the first period, but there was an interesting graphic that came up which noted that during the course of this series, Dallas had only missed the net. I think it was a little over 12 times per game through the first 5 games of the series. They missed the net 14 times in the first. So as a result, shots were only 6-4 in favor of the Stars.
Yeah, and they did have the edge in play, I thought, in the first period, as you said. And I didn't notice them missing the net so much, but I guess they did in that first period. But it was a very low shooting period. We knew that.
It was. The best chances coming. Tyler Seguin missing a close-in shot on his backhand with an open side of the net, and then Jake Ottinger on Cole Perfetti. But then things changed around in the second, and after Ehlers missed on a breakaway, Scheifele scores off a Kyle Connor rebound shot from the left wing boards at 5:28 of the second. And Scheifele's numbers for the night: 9 out of the 54 hits that the Jets had, and Dallas only had 26. So Winnipeg was really bringing this game to Dallas in the second period. I love their game for almost the entire night.
Well, by far their best road game of the playoffs, for sure. And just to set up the Scheifele goal, Ehlers has a clear-cut breakaway. It's stopped by Ottinger, goes to the right of Ottinger into the corner, ends up coming back to Connor. Connor shoots. Scheifele goes to the front of the net, grabs the puck, and as Ottinger's moving with him, slides it between his legs and into the net. And I just remember seeing Scheifele celebrating on that, going, wow, that's just perfect.
It was. And unfortunately for the Jets, it didn't stay that way, because off a Thomas Harley rebound, and we'll be hearing more about him shortly, Sam Steele with a one-timer, high glove again on Connor Hellebuck, which was his Achilles heel throughout these playoffs, ties the game at 1, a little bit past the midway point in the second period.
But I thought that Hellebuck could have been screened on that a little bit. I mean, he went down in his style that he does, where he's on his knees, spread across the goal line, glove up over his left shoulder, and Steele was able to put it off the bar and in. So he hit the crossbar, and then it went down and into the net. So a pretty good shot by Steele, and it would have been a pretty tough save for Hellebuck.
Didn't get any better for Winnipeg at that point because later in the period, Josh Morrissey, their number one defenseman, leaves the game with an apparent left knee injury after he got tangled up with Mikko Rantanen behind the Winnipeg net.
Yeah, and you could see on the replays, they showed it several times, that his knee really twisted badly, and then he went off the ice holding his knee, which is sort of strange to picture, but as he limped over to the bench, he was holding that knee, and he went right down the hallway and never came back.
We don't have a diagnosis yet, but after the game, Scott O'Neill said that it was not good. And if this is any sort of ligament damage, it could compromise his ability to start the 2025-26 season.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the thing about this is that it was very innocent.
Yeah.
There was nothing to this. I mean, they just got tangled up behind the net, and just the way their legs got tangled, this happened. And it's really a shame, because certainly Winnipeg missed him the rest of the game.
Early in the third period, teams swapped excellent opportunities. Scheifele had a near miss. Hellebuck made a stop on Mikko Rantanen, but perhaps the best chance came middle of the third period. Mason Appleton with a wide open side, and this was something that was not said. He shot this puck back into Jake Ottinger in the middle of the net.
He did, but Ottinger made that acrobatic jump to grab it. I mean, had Ottinger not been so quick, it was in the net. But he got back, and to try to describe the play, he jumped, and when he saved it, he was actually facing the net, pulling it into himself with his hands.
Yeah.
It's just very hard to describe. You'd have to see it on a replay, but it should have been in the net. I mean, Appleton had the whole net, but where he placed it, Ottinger, with an acrobatic save, was able to get to it.
And Ottinger had to make another stop off of Alex Iafallo with 5 minutes left. So over the final 40 minutes of regulation, the Jets outshot the Stars 19-11, and Dallas with 38 missed shots overall. But now we've got to go back a little bit. Last seconds of regulation, Sam Steele with an apparent chance for a breakaway. Mark Scheifele has to take him down, and that penalty is called with 15 seconds left in regulation.
Yeah, and that was a tough one. But like you said, Vic, he had to do what he had to do, and it resulted in a penalty.
What were you thinking penalty shot there? Yes or no?
No, not really. I wasn't thinking that. That would have been a tough time. You'd have had to have balls of a very large brass monkey to call a penalty shot at that point.
Well, as it is, the power play carries into overtime. Dallas wins a 50-50 puck as a result of having that one more man. Tyler Seguin gets the puck behind the net, out to Thomas Harley, and just a wonderful shot. Going against the grain, high blocker on Hellebuck. Just 12 seconds left on the minor to Scheifele. And that's that. As painful as it could get, that the man that starts the game with so much heartache, scores the first goal, is in the penalty box when the series ends.
Yeah, and the play was a bang-bang play. Seguin jumped to get that puck behind the net, knew that Harley was out there, quickly got it to him, and he one-timed it real fast. And so Hellebuck had no shot at saving this thing, just no shot. And yeah, it is sad that Scheifele was in the penalty box when this went in. But again, had he not done what he did, Steele might have scored with 15 seconds to go, and that would have been the same result.
the handshake line itself, and I thought Bob Wischusen put it so well, considering that Jamie Benn had actually knocked Scheifele over at the end of Game 5, resulting in a $5,000 fine. Ben was the first one to the handshake line, as was Scheifele, and Wischusen said, all you need to know about this sport is right here. And the two of them embraced for a good 15 seconds. And it just goes to show that there are things bigger than the game. And the display of support coming from the opposition, not only Ben, but the entire Dallas team, was really something to see.
And I would correct you just on one thing. I think this is all you need to know about the NHL, not necessarily about the sport, but I think the NHL. I don't know what it's like in other leagues around the world and if they're like this, but I do know in the NHL, the culture of the NHL is what you saw on display.
And it was a special thing to see. And pictures say more than words here. Before we leave this game, let's go back to Connor Hellebuyck, because he certainly had a very rough playoff on the road. Ended up 0-6. But does last night's performance kind of put away the perception that he cannot play well in a big game in a hostile environment?
I think that was a great game by Hellebuyck and a great game by Ottinger. And your record is your record. And this is the unfortunate part. His record is 0-6. If they lost 6-1 or they lost 2-1 in overtime, his record is 0-6, and he's going to have to live with that. But I think anybody that was watching him throughout these playoffs saw that last night he got rid of all those demons about how he can't play on the road. He did a fantastic job for them. And it was a power play goal in overtime, a one-timer, and nothing he could do about it. So in my mind, anyway, I'm a big Connor Hellebuyck fan, knowing that he is the rightful Vezina Trophy recipient again this year.
Let's head over to the one series that has not been settled yet. And my understanding is you have a lot of supporters in Toronto this morning, based on your pick for Game 6, where after their Game 5 performance, it appeared that there was no shot of the Maple Leafs bringing this series back home.
But I didn't say there was no shot. I said I thought Florida would win. That's all I said. Was that Florida would win. They were at home, and they're the Florida Panthers. But let's see. Now it's a big Game 7. Toronto's not good about Game 7 since 2004. Florida's been great in Game 7s, including winning the Stanley Cup in Game 7.
Yes, they have. But just so you know, people were running to put wagers down on Toronto after your lean was to the Florida Panthers.
And they'll be running to put money down on whoever I say won't win tonight.
That's called a tease. And we'll wait until the end of this recap of Game 6, preview of Game 7, to see what your crystal ball's going to reveal.
Yes. It was same one that used by Isosceles. And anyway, go ahead.
Perhaps some news on Matthew Knies, who was ailing at the end of Game 6, reverse hit that he took from Nico Mikkola. What do you got?
My spies tell me that he's on the ice for the morning skate in Toronto. So it appears that Matthew Knies, number 23, the power forward, will be back in the lineup tonight for Game 7.
So you weren't looking at your crystal ball. You actually have your moles out there.
I have my moles, yes.
All right, there we go. So let's go back to Game 6 before we look ahead to Sunday evening. And I think both of us really expected that the Panthers were going to go out for the kill shot. And even though I don't think they were quite at the level of ineptitude that the Maple Leafs showed throughout Game 5, this was not a good effort. And we don't want to overstate shots on goal, because more often than not, it's where they're from, not how many. But that 7-2 edge for the Maple Leafs was pretty indicative of what was going on.
It was, and it was not a good period for the Florida Panthers to be at home in a game when they could clinch the series and go into the locker room after the first, having been outshot 7-2 on home ice.
But for a team that gets it, like a Paul Maurice club, how do you explain that coming off of Game 5?
Oh, the way you explain it is that the Leafs did a better job in what they had to do than what the Panthers did and what they had to do. And remember, we've talked about this. So Game 5, they get pummeled score-wise in Toronto by the Panthers. The Panthers go back to Florida just working on what they've been doing the whole time. Toronto goes in and makes the proper adjustments they have to make, talks about how they want to approach the game differently, and they come out with a different approach. And Florida perhaps wasn't ready for that Toronto type approach. So this happens often. It's a teeter-totter, right? It goes back and forth.
I did think the Panthers were considerably better in the second period, both in the physical aspect and getting more shots to the net. Shots were 12-6. But as you had said, the Toronto approach was they played a very patient game, and that started to feel a lot like the second and third periods of the Capitals Hurricanes Game 5, where one team had the edge in play, but it was almost as if the road team was waiting for that one big break to happen. And at the 6:20 mark, it did on what started out as a rather innocuous play. A mishandle on a basic breakout by Aaron Ekblad. Mitch Marner, another one of the players that the Maple Leafs needed to have some sort of production or some sort of impact, gets the puck to Auston Matthews, and a shot that squeaks through the legs of Sergei Bobrovsky, and the Leafs are ahead.
At 6:20 of the third period. So think about how long this game had gone scoreless.
And then the clincher came with 5:43 left. And I don't know if Nate Schmidt was caught between wanting to shoot or wanting to pass or make a play around the boards, but whatever happened, the puck did go along the boards, came up the left side, Domi to Bobby McMahon, who had not had a point since Game 1 of the Ottawa series. Really nice saucer pass to Max Pacioretty and a little backhanded chip over Bobrovsky. And there is hope again in Toronto.
Yeah, and Pacioretty, of all people, who was sort of an afterthought this season, putting him on the Leafs. He's getting near the end of his career. But you know what? A really nice little chip backhand, and all of a sudden, 2-0.
Sam Reinhart missed the net late on a chance to get the Panthers within one. But according to Sport Logic, only 3 shots from inside the house for the Panthers of their 22 for the game. And Joseph Woll gets his first career shutout, so no Starlars, no problem. This is Woll's series to win or lose on Sunday.
Yeah, and he goes from the GOAT to the hero because remember, he got pulled in the game before. Now he gets his first career playoff shutout. And which one will we see tonight? We don't know.
Well, I don't think he could be faulted too much, even though a couple of the goals, I'm sure he would like to have back in Game 5, but that was a complete egg that was laid by the Leafs in Game 5. But they rebound, bring it to a Game 7, where now the Leafs are battling their own history, but also have an attempt to make their own history. They've lost 6 straight Game 7s, 4 of those to Boston. All of them with Brad Marchand on the Bruins side. And, guess who they're facing in Game 7 tonight?
Against the Florida Panthers, number 63, Brad Marchand.
Yeah. All right, wise one. What do you got? People are hanging on your every word here.
Put your money on Toronto because I say Florida will win.
There you have it. And I'm going to be Switzerland, and I'm playing neutral because I have no idea anyway. So
you're not picking it. You're going to be like a little mouse and not have a pick?
Yes, I'm going into my corner right now. But before I do that, a reminder that that game will start at 7:30 Eastern on TNT. The winner goes on to face the Carolina Hurricanes in the East Final. Some news from around the NHL coming out of the Edmonton camp. Oilers defenseman Matthias Ekholm confirmed will miss games 1 and 2 of the Western Final against Dallas, and defenseman Troy Stecher left practice on Saturday after taking a puck to the face, and also Connor Brown did not practice. And out of Washington, Alex Ovechkin intends to return for his 21st NHL season. He will be entering the final season of a 5-year, $47.5 million contract. He turns 40 in September. He's got 897 career goals. So, obviously, we have said, I'm not a math major, but he's got 900 on his doorstep. If he has a healthy season and he puts up 40 goals, that will put him roughly 60 away from 1,000. I don't see him walking away from the game with that number being within sight.
I don't think that number's going to get within sight, and I think he's going to go and play in the KHL for his final season. That's what he's been saying. So I think when his contract is up in Washington, he'll say thank you. He'll go to the KHL for one season in his homeland. Next year, if he gets, just to do easy math, if he gets 33 goals next season, he'll end up at 930. You know, he'd have to play at least 2 more years after that. So I just don't see that happening. One of the things I want to go back on them, and I don't know that if you saw that, you know, no matter who wins, Toronto or Florida, the series with Carolina will start Tuesday.
Yes, correct.
And if Toronto wins, they just stay put. And if Florida wins, they fly to Raleigh.
Raleigh, yes.
For Tuesday night. So it's a quick turnaround for whoever wins Game 7. They only get 1 day off, and they got to start the next series.
And the Western Final will open in Dallas on Wednesday.
Yes. Isn't it odd, though, that, not odd, but isn't it something that the Eastern, who ends later, starts sooner, and the Western, who ended yesterday, doesn't start till Wednesday? So they give 1, 2, 3 days off for the West, only 1 day off for the East.
And when you go back and you consider that had both series ended on Thursday, Saturday night's game would have been Dallas-Edmonton Game 1. So instead of opening on Saturday, they're now opening on Wednesday, 4 days later.
I know. To me, it's weird, but maybe you can explain, why do they do this?
It's all TV. It's ESPN, ABC, and Rogers. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, here we go. We're ready for this day in Stanley Cup history.
Oh, you're beautiful with that. And May 18th, we have 2 moments on this day in history. First one in 1971, the Montreal Canadiens come back from a 2-0 deficit in Game 7 of the final at Chicago Stadium. Jacques Lemaire, with his memorable slap shot from outside the blue line to beat Tony Esposito, made it 2-1. Henri Richard got the Canadiens even by the end of the second period and then scored early in the third, going around Hawks defenseman Keith Magnuson to win the cup for the Canadiens. It was Ken Dryden making 33 saves in goal for Montreal, and he earned the Conn Smythe Trophy that year. And in 1986, rookie Brian Scrudlin converted a pass from Mike McPhee at 9 seconds of overtime to give the Habs a 3-2 win in Game 2 of their final in Calgary. Canadians would go on to win their 23rd Stanley Cup in 5 games. That still remains the fastest overtime goal in Stanley Cup history. And while neither of those 2 Canadian teams were part of either of the great Canadiens dynasties, we will look back at the last true dynasty in the NHL. Coming up on Saturday, May 24th, we will drop Doormat to Dynasty, the 45th anniversary of the New York Islanders' first Stanley Cup championship. And Vic, we enjoyed that recording so much with Denny Potvin, John Tonelli, and Ken Morrow. And we're really looking forward to sharing that with everybody.
If you're an Islander fan or you're just a fan of the NHL in the 80s, you'll really enjoy getting the perspective of Dennis and John and Kenny. Remember, Ken Morrow had just won the gold medal for the United States in Lake Placid, had joined the team after that, and talks about how he was welcomed by the team and how exciting it was to go on to win a Stanley Cup after winning a gold medal. And then, of course, he didn't know, but he'd win 3 more after that.
Yeah. Some of the most fun that we had with this also was when the three of them just started a sidebar and talk about stories, toughness of playing the Boston Bruins in the second round, the toughness of the Flyers, and just throwing stories around. And I think it's those things that fans will get the most out of.
Oh, it's truly enjoyable and cathartic. You feel like you're back there again.
Saturday, May 24th, that show will drop. Neil and I will be back on Monday with Stanley Cupdate to recap Game 7 between the Maple Leafs and Panthers and a late lineup change for the Panthers. Evan Rodriguez returns after missing the last 2 games. He moves back to the top line, replacing Jesper Boqvist. NHL Wraparound returns with our conference final preview. Craig Button will be joining us once again, and we're going to see who's going to get their chicken wings out.
And whose predictions from the last round were right and whose were wrong.
Just going to leave you with this. There's a lot riding on tonight's game.
All right.
We'll speak to you folks Monday.